I bankrupted my own company to take my girlfriend's public, making her dream a reality. I poured everything I had into taking her startup public, thinking I was helping us both build a future. At her IPO celebration, I planned to surprise her, and everyone, by revealing that I wasn't just her silent investor, but the heir to a billion-dollar family empire. I wanted to announce that we were together, that all her success was our success. But before I could say a word, she took the stage with another man holding her hand. "Brian," she said, voice trembling with excitement, "the pregnancy rumors are true. He's the father." The entire room froze. Then, one by one, heads turned toward me. I smiled, slow and deliberate, and began to clap. The crowd followed, cheering as if they hadn't just watched a man's world collapse. Watching Sophia shine beside Brian, I finally understood. If this was what she called happiness, I wouldn't fight for it. I walked out, pulled out my phone, and called my father. "Cut the funding for Sophia's company," I said. "Let her handle the IPO on her own." My father didn't need much explanation. He could always sense when something inside me had broken. "Bill," he said quietly, "if we pull support, Rosewood Tech won't survive. They're already drowning in tax problems. Are you sure about this?" He paused, his tone softening. "It's been 7 years, son. Don't make a choice you'll regret." 7 years. That's how long I'd been with Sophia. I had sacrificed everything for her: time, money, health. When her company was on the brink of collapse, I drained my own thriving business just to keep hers alive. She used to cry watching me burn myself out, swearing she'd make it up to me. She promised that once the company went public, we'd finally stop hiding and be together openly. But promises are just words. Easy to make, easier to break. "Dad," I said, my voice flat, "just trust me on this." He didn't argue again. Minutes later, Sophia came running after me. "Bill," she snapped, "you're the host tonight. You can't just walk out. That's completely unprofessional." I turned to her, my laugh sharp and bitter. My job didn't include hosting her public betrayal. Her expression hardened. "You can't pick and choose what part of the event you want to be in," she shot back. And for the record, I wasn't lying. "Brian is the father of my baby. You wouldn't want me to claim it's yours, would you?" I froze. She had never told me she was pregnant. I found the test in the bathroom trash weeks ago and assumed it was mine. She hadn't corrected me, not once. I'd been caring for her, worrying about her, all while she let me believe a lie. It hit me like a punch to the gut. I wasn't her partner. I was just a temporary stand-in, a convenient man with resources. I felt disgust crawl up my throat. "I'm done here," I said, and walked away. Back home, I showered, trying to wash the night off me. But when I lay down, my phone buzzed. A video. It was from Brian. I pressed play, and the room filled with Sophia's voice, moaning, gasping, calling his name. She wasn't pretending. Her movements were wild, alive. "Oh, Brian," she whispered breathlessly, "only with you does it feel like we truly become one." I stared at the screen, numb. With me, she'd always been distant, motionless, like a body without a soul. I used to think she just wasn't into it. Turns out, she just wasn't into me. A strange calm settled over me. For the first time, I didn't feel the need to fight or understand. I just wanted to sleep. I dropped the phone, rolled onto my side, and let everything fade into darkness. It was past midnight when the front door opened. Sophia stumbled in, half carrying a drunken Brian. The next thing I knew, she yanked the blanket off me, letting the cold air bite at my skin. I blinked awake, disoriented, only to find her glaring down at me with that same entitled expression she always wore. "Move to the couch," she said sharply. "Brian's taking the bed tonight." It wasn't the first time she spoke to me like that, like a servant, not a partner. After 7 years together, she had perfected the art of commanding me. I didn't move. "Doesn't he have a place of his own? Can't you see he's drunk?" She shot back, her tone clipped, as if my question were ridiculous. "I need to take care of him." The irony stung. I remembered the night I came home drunk after closing a deal for her company. I'd called her, asking for help. She told me it was too cold to go out. I crawled home, collapsed at the door, and woke up with a fever so bad I had to call an ambulance. She never visited once. "Right," I muttered, voice flat. "He's the father of your child after all." She nodded, misunderstanding the tone. "Exactly. So, are you going to move or not?" She sighed, softening her voice like she was being reasonable. "Bill, I know you're angry, but I can't let my baby grow up calling another man dad. A noble speech coming from the woman who caused all this. I looked at her properly then, and for the first time, I didn't feel love or pain, just disgust. I started to get up, ready to leave, but she reached out as if trying to reason with me. I love Brian, she said finally. He's the one I want, but I still want peace between us. So here's what I'm thinking. The three of us live together. You'll stay on as general manager, handle the business side. I'll make sure you get your fair cut. Everyone wins. I couldn't help it. I laughed. The audacity of it. She wanted to keep me as her free labor while playing house with her lover. No thanks, I said. You've made your choice. I wish you both the best. Sophia looked at me as though I'd said something absurd. Oh, stop being so dramatic, she snapped. You wouldn't even survive without me. I've supported you all these years. Let's be adults. Brian and I both agreed this could work. Before I could respond, Brian let out a loud retch. Instantly, she rushed to him, fussing like a devoted wife. That was my cue to leave the room. I grabbed a blanket and went to the study. The pounding on the study door woke me hours later. Get up and make breakfast, Sophia shouted. Brian and I want noodles. Hurry up. I pulled the covers over my head and said nothing. After a while, the knocking stopped. When I finally rose, the apartment was quiet. They were gone. Good. Perfect. I began to pack. The bedroom reeked of alcohol and perfume. The closet was half empty, but I realized most of what was left was mine. Old clothes. Things I'd bought before I moved in. I stuffed them into a trash bag. If I was leaving clean. The couple's toothbrushes, matching slippers, even the dishes I'd bought for our home. All of it went into the bin. Her half of everything was untouched, still in the packaging. She'd never cared to use them. When I reached the shoe rack, something caught my eye. A pair of men's underwear tucked behind a shoebox. Not mine. The blood drained from my face. My mind conjured a sick montage of scenes, her laughter with Brian, the two of them here, in this bed, in this home, while I played the fool outside. I stood there for a long time, then let out a breath that felt like poison leaving my chest. Thank God I was finally awake. The next morning, I sent my few remaining possessions back to my family's estate and drove straight to Rosewood Tech. Officially, I was the company's general manager. Unofficially, I was the one who had kept it from collapsing all these years, closing deals, covering debts, fighting fires while Sophia soaked up the glory. When I opened the office door, the sight that greeted me was almost poetic. Sophia and Brian were wrapped around each other, smiling as her secretary packed up a desk. My desk. Now that their relationship was public, they didn't bother hiding. I remembered how she used to refuse even a simple dinner together at work, claiming she had to set an example as the boss. I almost laughed. Get rid of all that junk, Sophia said, pointing at my things. I don't know why we kept this garbage so long. It's dragging down the image of the office. They turned when I entered. Sophia's face went cold. Brian smirked like a man who thought he'd already won. Bill, she said crisply, after your unprofessional behavior last night, I've decided to demote you. Brian will take over as general manager. You'll stay on as his deputy. Effective immediately. She didn't even blink. And that deal with the New York investors? She added. You'll help Brian finalize it. Don't make a scene. The New York deal. The one I nearly drummed myself into the hospital for. The one my father's connections had sealed. Now they wanted to steal it. Predictable. I didn't argue. I reached into my jacket, pulled out an envelope, and placed it on her desk. My resignation, I said simply. Please approve it. The color drained from her face. Brian's, however, lit up with excitement. He sneered. Seriously? You're quitting because of a demotion? Come on, Deputy Vance. Don't flatter yourself. This company doesn't revolve around you. Walking out before the IPO? Real professional. Sophia's shock hardened into fury. Fine, she snapped. I accept. Pack your things and leave. And don't ever set foot in Rosewood Tech again. I nodded, calm and unbothered. I placed a few personal items into a small box. That was when her assistant burst in, breathless. Ms. Rosewood, the representative from New York is here. They're ready to finalize the deal. Instantly, Sophia turned to Brian, smoothing his tie with a smile. You've got this, she whispered. Everything's already agreed upon. Just get the signature. I won't let you down, he said, puffing up with pride as he strutted out to greet the guest. I followed behind with my box. In the hallway, Brian extended his hand toward the visiting executive. Hello, I'm Brian Carter, the new general manager. I'll be handling the financing going forward. The man didn't even shake his hand. Instead, he spotted me and broke into a broad smile. Mr. Vance, he said warmly, taking the box from my arms, his voice carrying through the hall. I was informed about the situation. I'm actually here to cancel the investment. He gestured casually toward Brian and Sophia. Our agreement was entirely based on your involvement, as a courtesy to your father. Since you're no longer with the company, there's no reason for us to continue. Silence. Brian's smile faltered. Sophia's confidence drained in an instant. For the first time in 7 years, I didn't feel trapped or angry. I felt free. The investor's words hit Sophia and Brian like a hammer. For a moment, neither of them could even speak. Sophia turned toward me, trembling, her face pale. You're the son of a billionaire, she stammered. But your company went bankrupt. It did, I replied, meeting her eyes evenly. My company collapsed. My father's didn't. And you, of all people, should remember exactly why mine fell apart. Something flickered behind her eyes, shame, maybe, or just recognition. My company had been thriving before she came along. But when she started to fall behind, I couldn't stand to see her struggle. I transferred my best projects to her firm, even helped her manage them when her team couldn't. Little by little, I bled my own business dry to feed hers. I told myself it didn't matter, that one day we'd be married, and everything I had would be ours. Naive doesn't even begin to cover it. Brian recovered first, smirking with smug disbelief. Unbelievable, he scoffed. You get demoted for incompetence and decide to burn everything down on your way out? What did you do? Pay this guy to pretend there's no deal. Pathetic. Sophia, as usual, latched onto his version of events. I could almost see the shift, the instant she decided, I must be lying. I didn't bother defending myself. I turned to leave, but she grabbed my arm, nails digging into my skin. Bill, you can hate me all you want, she snapped, but don't drag the company down with you. There are hundreds of people waiting for that IPO, counting on it for their stock options. You think this is some kind of game? I stared at her for a long moment, the outrage in her voice, so misplaced it was almost laughable. She'd stood on the shoulders I built for her for so long, she forgot how she got there in the first place. Ms. Rosewood, I said, my tone icy. I've already resigned. Rosewood Tech is no longer my problem. Shouting at me won't fix your mess. She lifted her chin, defiant as ever. You think you can just walk away after sabotaging our IPO? Not a chance. Fix this, or I swear, I'll never speak to you again. Once, that threat would have broken me. Once, I would have done anything just to keep her from walking away. But not anymore. I looked at Brian, then back at her. You might want to lower your voice, I said quietly. Wouldn't want your boyfriend to get jealous while you're trying to sweet-talk me. Her jaw tightened. You're pregnant, Sophia, I added, pulling free of her grip. If I were you, I'd take care of yourself. Without another glance, I walked out. The representative escorted me downstairs before leaving. The deal had been ready to close. All it needed was a signature. But their arrogance couldn't wait. They had to celebrate early, to parade their betrayal in public. They deserved what followed. When I returned to New York, my father wasted no time arranging a marriage for me. I agreed immediately. Everything happened fast. Our families met, negotiations were made, and within days I was signing a marriage license with a woman I barely knew. As I looked down at that paper, it struck me, the thing I'd begged Sophia for over 7 years, I'd achieved with a stranger in a week. That's the difference between being loved and being used. I thought that chapter of my life was finally over. But the day after my wedding, Sophia showed up at my doorstep. When I opened the door, I barely recognized her. It had only been a week, but Sophia looked hollowed out. Her hair was tangled, her eyes bloodshot and sunken, her frame fragile like she hadn't slept or eaten properly in days. I finally found you, she said, reaching toward me as though expecting a hug. I stepped back, my expression unreadable. I'm married, I said evenly. You should leave. The words hit her like a slap. She froze, disbelief clouding her features. You're married? She whispered. Bill, how could you? You cheated on me. You betrayed me. I almost laughed. That was classic Sophia, twisting everything until she became the victim. She had publicly declared another man as the father of her child, and now I was the betrayer. If that's what helps you sleep at night, I said, my voice flat. Then believe whatever you want. My wife's name is Danielle Sterling. I'm her husband now. You should go. Just then, Danielle appeared at the end of the hallway, wrapped in a silk robe, her hair cascading over her shoulders. She glanced at Sophia, feigning surprise before letting a small, deliberate smile curl her lips. So, she said smoothly, you must be the famous Sophia Rosewood. I've heard quite a bit about you. Danielle slid her arm through mine with casual possession. You're pregnant, she continued, her voice honeyed but sharp. You really shouldn't be running around like this. Wouldn't want people thinking we had anything to do with complications. It was the first time I'd seen this side of Danielle, poised, territorial, and quietly ruthless. And strangely enough, I found it refreshing. At the mention of her pregnancy, Sophia flinched, her gaze dropping. Then suddenly she blurted out, I got rid of it. The baby's gone. And Brian and I are over. It's done. Her voice cracked. I ended it for you, Bill. Please come back. We can start over. I promise I'll never see him again. Her desperation might have sounded convincing to anyone else. But I wasn't naive anymore. I knew she hadn't ended that pregnancy for me. She'd done it because everything was falling apart and she had no one left to cling to. Before I could reply, Danielle gasped dramatically, covering her mouth. Oh my God, she said in mock shock. You had an abortion? She turned to me, eyes wide with playful horror. Bill, sweetheart, your father barely tolerated that I wasn't a virgin when we married. Imagine what he'll say when he hears about this. Danielle leaned closer, lowering her voice just enough for Sophia to hear. Besides, she teased, you were so rough last night. My first time and all. I should tell him you corrupted me. Her performance was over the top, but I understood what she was doing. She wanted Sophia to know that she wasn't intimidated, that the past had no hold over me anymore. I brushed a hand through Danielle's hair, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. All right, I said softly. We'll face my father together later. Go get dressed. I gave her a reassuring look. I'll handle this. After she left, I grabbed my jacket and motioned for Sophia to follow me. We ended up at a small cafe nearby. I ordered her a cappuccino, myself an iced Americano. When the drinks arrived, I didn't waste time. You've seen my wife, I said quietly. She's not someone who tolerates interference. So, I'm asking you, don't involve yourself in my life again. Sophia's hand shot out, gripping mine desperately. Then divorce her, she begged. I won't care that you've been married before. We can go back to how it was. Please, Bill. Please. I pulled my hand back, my patience gone. Why would I? I said, my voice low and final. You and Brian destroyed any chance of that. There's no going back. Not now, not ever. Her eyes glistened with tears, but I felt nothing. The chapter between us was over. For good. Seeing me so resolute left Sophia lost for words. She fumbled, then covered her face and began to sob. In the past, that sound would have shredded me. Now it only irritated me. I was out of my mind, she cried, hiccuping. I love you, Bill. I only realized it after you were gone. Tell me what to do, anything, and I'll do it. I sucked in a breath, fought the annoyance, and offered a napkin. She did not take it. She waited for the old ritual, for me to tenderly dry her face like I always had. I dropped the napkin in the trash instead. Love, I asked, incredulous. Do you love me, or did you love being taken care of? The comforts I provided, the way I smoothed every wrinkle in your life? Can you even tell the difference? My questions left her speechless. She stammered and fell apart into louder, more theatrical wails. The sound was raw and pathetic, not grief for me, but panic over what she had lost. Miss Rosewood, I said coldly, whatever feeling I had for you is gone. If you have any decency left, stop trying to wreck my life. Move on. She continued to sob, stunned and broken. Today was my first day back at Vance International, my father's company. He had installed me as a general manager to reacquaint me with the business, a soft landing before I climbed again. I had barely settled at my new desk when Danielle strolled in, a manila folder in hand. She paused by the windows, admired the view, then turned with a wicked smile. So, she purred, placing a hand on her hip. What'd he say? Want to try something exciting right here? I bet it would be a rush. I glanced at the door. Someone could walk in at any time. I locked it, she said, and the answer was final. When in Rome, she was right. The risk sharpened everything. Afterwards, we lay tangled and breathless, and she settled against my shoulder with a satisfied, teasing question. So, what did you two talk about? What did she say? I told her simply, I have you now. There's no room for anyone else. She studied me, searching for sincerity. All men are liars, she murmured, then climbed into my lap with a promise. One more time, and I'll give you a present. What's the present? I asked. You'll see, she answered, mischievous. Intimacy and alignment make a relationship endure, and with Danielle, the buried appetite from 7 starved years was unleashed. She loved that fire, and she was the first to match it, and also the first to laugh when I finally slowed. After she dressed, Danielle handed me the folder. Open it, she said. Inside was a dossier on Rosewood Tech, the aftermath of my departure. The failed financing was only the beginning. The tax evasion scheme had been exposed, and the company was $100 million in the red. Sophia had demanded answers from Brian. He had reacted violently. In a private tantrum, he grabbed her hair and slammed her head against a desk, then kicked her in the stomach, careless of the pregnancy he had once boasted about. So she had not aborted the baby. Brian had driven her to it, with his fists. A chill ran through me. Suddenly her desperate appearance made sense. Looks like your ex traded you for a violent thug, Danielle said, reading over my shoulder with a dark satisfaction. Poetic justice. I nodded and kept reading, as Danielle urged me on. The truth got worse. Brian was a compulsive gambler. He had siphoned funds and lost them, hiding debts behind fake ledgers. His relationship with Sophia had been a long con, a plan to access her money. When the pool of funds dried, he insisted she give him access or else face violence. He had even threatened to kill her if she refused. That was why Sophia had come to me, broke and terrified. She had no one else. So, Danielle asked, eyes sharp, are you going to rescue your damsel in distress? I closed the file and met her gaze. Everyone has to walk their own path, I said quietly. I can't change fate. You're not afraid he might actually kill her? She pressed. She would have to face that fate herself, I answered, without drama. It was not cruelty, more a refusal to be dragged back into a life I had left. When I was with Sophia, my family had tried to pry me free and failed. Now, cleanly out, I would not let pity undo the boundary I had set. Danielle studied me, then smiled. You're ruthless, she observed, and left the office. I stayed to read through the morning. By 10, the building emptied. As I drove out of the underground garage, a figure stepped in front of my car. Sophia. I let her in. We drove in silence until I pulled over by the lake and lowered the windows. The night air whipped her hair, and for the first time I noticed the bruises at the base of her neck, the clever placements meant to hide under collars. You know everything, don't you? She whispered finally. Yes, I said. Help me, she pleaded, voice breaking. I don't want him to kill me. Please, Bill. No one can protect you forever, I replied, my voice soft but firm. You need to learn to solve your own problems. You watched me run your company for years. You could have seen what Brian was doing if you had looked. You are an adult, Sophia. You will face the consequences of your choices. I gave her the last shard of assistance she deserved, a final push toward responsibility. Brian had struck her repeatedly. She could have called the police. She had not. That was not weakness alone, it was complicity. They were both in pieces, and their mess was one they had made together. My help would end there. After that night, Sophia disappeared from my life completely. Once I stopped checking up on her, she simply faded out of existence, as if she'd never been part of my world at all. Life with Danielle, on the other hand, was exhausting. She had an endless appetite for attention and affection. In the beginning, I could match her energy, but it didn't take long before I started to crumble under the pressure. Whenever I saw her heading toward the shower, I'd retreat to my study and pretend to be buried in work. That trick didn't last long. Once she caught on, she'd simply corner me in the study instead. I always surrendered quickly and followed her back to the bedroom, quietly fearing whatever creative ideas she had in mind next. Ours had been an arranged marriage, but somehow it worked for both of us. 6 months passed before I heard anything new about Sophia. She hadn't left Brian. She'd stayed, determined to fix him. But a man like Brian doesn't change. He'd promised to be better, only to lose control and start swinging again the moment something set him off. Then, one night after a particularly savage beating, something inside Sophia broke. Terrified and desperate, She waited until he was asleep and killed him. Her timing couldn't have been worse. It was ruled a premeditated act, and although the court acknowledged her history of abuse, it didn't save her. She was sentenced to life in prison. Life really does resemble a chess game. One wrong move, and everything begins to collapse. Some players manage to recover, while others fall off the board for good. Sophia and Brian both paid the price for their mistakes. Meanwhile, my efforts with Danielle finally bore results. She was pregnant. That meant 10 months of relative peace for me. The moment she got the results, Danielle came storming in, waving the paper in my face. "You messed with the condoms, didn't you?" she shouted. "I made you use one every single time." I took her wrist gently, pulling her close. "I was just thinking of you," I murmured. "The sooner we have one, the sooner your body recovers. Besides, isn't it about time?" Her anger wavered. "But I wasn't done having fun yet. Now I'll be stuck with a baby," she protested. "Well, what choice do we have?" I said with a small smile. "It's our child, our love. We can't just throw it away, can we?" I placed a hand on her stomach, pretending I could already feel the heartbeat beneath my palm. Her expression softened. "I guess, now that it's happened, we can't undo it." "Exactly," I said, pulling out my phone. "Let's tell our families the good news." Danielle sighed in defeat as I typed out the messages. By evening, the news had spread like wildfire. Both families were overjoyed and immediately insisted on a celebratory dinner. At the table, Danielle was the star of the evening, her plate piled high with food. "Mom, Dad, the baby isn't even formed yet," she said weakly. "Isn't it too soon to start picking names?" "Of course not," my father declared. "A name is important. It shapes destiny." "He's right," my mother added. "Why, I spent a whole year deciding what to name you." I groaned. "And that's what you came up with after a year? Could have saved yourself the trouble." "Hey," my father shot me a glare, though he looked slightly embarrassed. "Your name is perfectly fine." He turned to Danielle's parents. "Still, maybe we should all brainstorm together." And so it began. Within an hour, they had a list of more names than we could ever use. Watching them argue over whether Alexander or Sebastian sounded better, I couldn't help but smile. For a moment I thought, this is what a real family feels like.